it was very difficult. 24 hours. Just wanted to get her into a good place. I didn't want anything else. I just wanted to make sure that she had a good life ahead of her. Standing in line, waiting for, my mind just shut down, Rajan. I couldn't really even think anymore at that point. Here's a 7-year-old being taken to another country. The detention centers they could keep kids in there for 6 months. I was so scared for Arya.
Welcome back to the world's greatest journey and the official platform for people of Indian origin. Yes, welcome back to the Global Indian Series podcast, where we plunge into the human experience of what's it like to be a person of Indian origin, take a second look at the countries we now call home, and tackle the conversations we all need to know more about. Thank you for clicking the link and finding out more about this remarkable voyage that really plunges into the situation of what's it like to be a father and how far would you go to get custody for your child. Keeping in mind, in this particular instance, there's over 8,000 miles that separates them. This is a remarkable voyage of epic proportions because our guest, Ravi Patel, talks very openly and candidly about the situation he found himself in. He felt that he was in the relationship of his dreams. He was married, he finally had a child, a beautiful daughter, and things were going good. His wife then wanted to move to India, so he took the plunge over, leaving everything that he felt comforted back home in the US to move over to make sure she feels happy. Unfortunately, what we hear from there is the lies that the marriage was built upon and the tragic circumstances it took on him and his life. But what you also find is the absolute perseverance of the human spirit to do what you feel is right to do and to take on the epic fights and the battles to be reunited with your daughter. To say that what you hear here is heroic is an understatement. But I, like you, believe that everybody's a hero and we all have these magical moments in which the very best of us comes through. So like always, I hope you enjoyed this session. I'd like to say thank you to our remarkable sponsors out there, including the support from shareme.com, the app for all your beauty, wellness and fitness needs.
And just move. Get up 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 and just.
I made the decision to drop my career, drop everything, move to India so that I could try and work on, being together with my ex-wife now, and my daughter, who was about 1 at the time. And as soon as I landed at the airport, I actually, went straight to their home. She was obviously staying with her family, and I received divorce papers right there on the spot. So for me, I'm just giving up everything that I've lived for in the United States. Like my father, put in 15, 20 years to even get us to the United States. The amount of effort he did, to keep us there and to make sure that we could have a successful life. I was giving all of that up. And I wanted to do it because I believe in my family. I believe in, doing the best I can for my family. I made the decision that I'm still going to wait there. I'm still going to stick it out. I want to make sure I can be around my daughter, even though it's far. I won't be able to see her as much. And I still, again, wanted to be within arm's reach. So I made the dedication of staying there for 6 months initially. I actually extended it again because I was like, I think I'm just going to drop everything and stay in India now. I can, move forward. Again, I had excellent support from so many of my friends, so many of my family that, even helped me get into certain things, job wise, or just, so I can even just actually even live in India. For, an American to move there, generally requires a lot of different permits and things like that. There's different things that we have to get done, obviously, too. About, a year into it, I was given basically this understanding that my ex has actually already moved on, already gotten married, moving into a new family. It was going to be very difficult for me to see her this much, especially on the terms we left.
And when we
On
see her, it's seeing your daughter.
my daughter,
Right,
yeah,
yeah,
my daughter,
yeah.
yep, exactly, yeah, just seeing my daughter, and she was only about 2 at the time, so I only got to see her every other month. I'd still fly from Mumbai to Gujarat, Ahmedabad, um, every month almost, just to come see her just for a little bit. But as time went on, it got more and more difficult. I wasn't able to see her then, and I had to make a decision at this point that, if I'm not able to see her at all, I would rather come back and at least take care of my father and my mother, who are now, they were in their 60s at the time. So I really wanted to make sure that I had some coverage there as well, because again, family is family to me. So I have to make sure that. So fast forward about a year, we found out that my dad had a basically stage 4 brain tumor, and that was all of a sudden was something that just came up. These were just year after year. It felt like there's more and more just happening, and it just became a real struggle. During that whole time, I could not stop thinking about Arya, my daughter. I could not stop thinking about her at all for a number of years. And that's just the way it was from the very beginning. Even after I did come back to the United States, there wasn't a single day where I wasn't thinking about her. And even though I'd be given the the understanding that she's being taken care of really well, like everything's fine from her close family, but I still couldn't stop thinking about it. But at least I had a peace of mind that she's in a good place and she's being taken care of. And even though it's not me, and I, no matter how much I try and fight for it, generally in India and even in the United States, I think this is for a lot of different countries, but usually the father, to get custody for a father to get custody, it's a lot harder. Usually it's a mother's preference, especially up until like the age of 18. So yeah, it wasn't a single day that I couldn't stop thinking about it. But I really didn't have many options, to be honest. Like even if I tried to fight for it, we spoke to some lawyers, we talked to a few folks, and because, like I said, a lot of the things weren't in my favor, I really, really wanted to bring Arya with me. My goal when I left India, even that year that I stayed there, I still had the goal that I need to somehow get her here. I felt that she would have a good education. I could make sure that I could take care of her, even from the age of 2, right? So she's about 2 years old at the time. And I still felt that I want to make sure that I can do everything for her. And as time goes on, obviously, like it was very difficult to actually make that happen. Like I said, if again, from just a legal perspective, it was almost impossible. And I eventually ended up finding out a few years later that my ex was starting to have more like mental health type issues, things that she wasn't really taking care of. My Arya, she moved on again, and there's just different things, moving to a different family again. It was the last straw when I realized what Arya's going through as a 4 or 5-year-old at the time, and I pushed for everything. I made the decision from January of that year that within this year I'm going to make sure that I have Arya by my side so that she's taken care of properly, because she was being severely neglected around that time. Not being sent to school for 2 years, not at all, like it was just severe, not being fed on time, not going to sleep on time, seeing things that she shouldn't be seeing, I guess, in some certain ways. And I couldn't sleep after I came back from that trip in January. I couldn't sleep for like months, man.
What were some of the things that she was witnessing there?
So a lot of drugs and alcohol abuse, things that were happening in the household that, again, just not being taken care of on time, not having just what a 5 or 6-year-old needs, right? I mean, just the basic daily structure
Love and
that a child
support
needs
as
to
well. Yeah.
develop. I mean, yeah, and the support, exactly. And I did everything at that point, Rajan. I reached out to even, my ex's side of the family, to just help me push as much as we can. Like, and they were fully on board. I mean, they kind of knew what was happening. They understood, that this is the right thing now. Like, we really need to get Arya, in a better place. Within 6 months, yeah, I made the decision that I just said that, I had to space it out because it took me a little while to figure out how I could get her here, because she was on a green card initially, where I'm a U.S. citizen, but she didn't visit the United States for over 3 or 4 years, which means that just based on the U.S. CIS laws, it requires you to come back into the country at least every 6 months. I don't know. Again, that's just 6 months to a year. If you're out of the country for more than 2 years, which she was out of the country for about four or five, that her green card would be considered, invalid at this point. I was already in a pickle trying to figure out how am I even going to get her here this quickly, and based on, I think, visas and just getting into the United States is pretty tough, for a lot of folks, especially now coming from having an Indian passport. Now, granted, I am her father with a citizenship, but I naturalized a lot later. I faced the challenge of even getting her here. It would have taken me, I think there was, USCIS, I was been given like 1 or 2 years.
Obviously,
Department of State.
and looking at where she was and what she'd gone through, what she's seeing, your impulse as a father is saying, I need to get her out of there immediately, because you're fearful, not only for her life, but also saying, well, what's the future going to hold for this precious child of yours? I remember you mentioned about your father, so your father was diagnosed, and what was the state of affairs at that moment in time, so at least you can...
Sure, yeah, absolutely, Rajan. My father being probably one of my best friends, I've ever had, just being the support that I can talk to him at any point in time about anything. He did end up having a brain tumor that he went into the hospital for, and we just didn't we didn't think that he wasn't going to come out of there. We when he did go through his surgery and everything to remove the tumor, it was basically like he wasn't coming back from that. He was in basically a vegetative state. It was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make in my life, because on one hand, again, having this father figure, having this person, that is there for us, has always been there for us in every single situation. I don't think he lived his life for us
So you made the tough choice, but you did it from a really good part of your heart to say what's best for him. But then at that very moment of the tragic circumstance of losing your father, obviously then comes in line, what do I do to help support the future generations, i.e. your daughter, his granddaughter? So now you're looking to get custody. Your father's just unfortunately passed on, and you're making a decision knowing what the US stands for in terms of the legal side, to go to India. And if we all have a frank, open conversation, India isn't the US, and especially that family that your ex-wife belonged to, it was a very prominent family in the area, and they could build a lot of, let's say, support where needs be, that could be at your detriment. What compelled you to go? Is it because were you not fearful over your life?
I was. My biggest challenge was just that, again, I'm making that decision. Like, if I go back to India, again, I'm still have my job and everything over here. And that's not important in terms of when Arya comes into place. But the fact that I couldn't wait 2 years, to let this all formally happen, file for her, wait for that to happen. By the time she would be 7 or 8, she's already developed quite a bit, and that I from my understanding, a lot of child development comes in the early years, and I didn't want to sacrifice that. So I pushed. Within 6 months, I left for India and asked everybody that I could. I mean, I went through, like I said, the USCIS, the Department of State. I mean, I've contacted our local governor. I contacted everyone to see if they could help me, get my child over here. And my some of my family over there, and I call them my family because even though they're my exes, they still have been very, very supportive for me. They helped push for custody papers at the same time. So I'm, you know, kind of in the middle of this battle that will I even get the custody papers when I get there? I mean, I can't just go steal my child. I don't think that's something that would even be looked as a good thing, and not according to Indian laws. I mean, India is a very, very tough place, as you kind of mentioned in certain aspects. And again, I just went in there not really knowing what the outcome was going to be. I contacted the U.S. Embassy. That was my one goal, was to actually fly to Mumbai, go to the actual embassy to see what they could do for me because of the situation. And I managed to get over there, and U.S. Embassy, was pretty hesitant on saying, that I would be able to get this done again within just a couple weeks. They stated, a couple years at the time, and I was just on a mission to make sure I could get Arya back and out of this, the situation she was in. So I visited so many different places, Rajan, different agents, different folks across, even in Delhi, Ahmedabad, Mumbai. I tried to get as many people as I could to give us somewhat of a straight answer on what I could actually do. And unfortunately, everybody said that there is nothing you can do. So at the time, we managed to get custody papers signed from my ex, just because I think she felt like this was, just not a good position that she was in, and same thing, that our daughter was in as well. So she did end up signing, which was a miracle in itself. I don't even know how that happened. But second to that, my next challenge was, how am I even going to get Arya into the United States? And I didn't have an answer, Rajan. I went to her school. I got a few letters that showed that Arya's being neglected, for example, from different places. And again, everybody was very supportive of this because they were looking at what's happening to this child, and especially the people that are involved with her. So the school is like an example. But I got more than just one letter of recommendation. Now that doesn't mean much when it comes to the laws. It's just something that I'm gambling on, and I decided to just book our flight once I got the custody papers. This all happened within 2 weeks. I just made a decision that I had to come back. I obviously couldn't stay out of the United States for more than that time, and I made a decision to just book the flight, take her with me. And I think me pretty personally. I'm not the greatest Hindi speaker. I have a little bit of a tough time speaking Hindi. So going through airport customs and going through all these places, they did question me as soon as I got to Ahmedabad airport. They questioned, how am I taking this child back? The green card is still valid, but they said that she's been here too long. I showed them the papers. It took them a while. For some reason, I don't know, just a miracle, they just let it go through. They said, okay, I mean, this makes sense. I couldn't tell you how, Rajan, how that even happened. But they ended up letting us through, and I'm assuming it's just because they saw my child. And I have obviously all of her birth certificates and everything that prove that I'm her father, so I'm not just just someone coming into the country. And I hit the same challenge when I got to Delhi, so I had to stop in Delhi right there. And this whole time, Raj, I couldn't sleep because I'm like, am I even going? Were they going to make her turn around? are they going to send her back? And what am I going to do if she goes back? I don't have a choice but to go with her. So it was very difficult 24 hours that I just wanted to get her into a good place. I didn't want anything else. I just wanted to make sure that she had a good life ahead of her. I don't think any father can ask for more, than to have their child be happy, successful, and just meet any requirements that a child would need. And when I did stop in Delhi, once again I was questioned. So now I'm just an hour away. I was questioned again, and again I don't know if they just looked at her face and they allowed it. They did bring on some other security officers. They bought other. It's not really TSA. I'm trying to think of exactly. I mean, it's their, the
equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah. So they saw the letters. I explained as much as I could in the broken Hindi that I speak. Again, between these flights, obviously, I think you're pretty aware, but usually there's not that much time. So there's only about sometimes 2-hour layovers. So it just came down to the wire. I mean, they let it go, and they said, okay. I mean, everything looks valid. I mean, she's perfectly perfectly fine from their standards. But again, the question was still there: is how is this all kind of happening? And my final leg was to get back into the actual States. Now, this was the one that I was, a little bit more comfortable in talking to our own border patrol and our own customs. And I don't know if you remember, but this is around the time that ICE was going in. ICE is the
Is that the detention centers? Or?
It is a detention center, yeah. For children, I think you may, or not just children. I mean, we typically see, obviously it's more than just children, but even children can be separated at that time. And, even though I was confident that I could, try and work this out, I had, had to keep lawyers on standby as soon as I landed in the United States to just pick up.
What was going through your mind on those flights?
Honestly, it was, I was just so worried that this is not going to happen. And even though I wanted to be very, very positive about it, I wanted to be confident that, it's going to, we can make it, we can definitely do this. Just all of those things, like I mentioned, like just ICE at the time was, separating parents from children. The detention centers, they could keep kids in there for 6 months. I mean, I was so scared for Arya, and I would still do anything and everything. I'm not.
How was the language? Because Arya, you've obviously seen it every year, but she was speaking fluent Gujarati, I guess, and aspects of Hindi, and your Hindi is there, but to a degree. But the way that you guys are communicating with each other, it's not as simple as you and I right now. There would be a lot of broken aspects. And did she understand what was happening?
Yeah, that's just a brilliant question, Rajan, which I didn't get to even go into. I mean, here's a 7-year-old being taken to another country, and I speak pretty good Gujarati, so she was comfortable. I mean, she hadn't seen me in quite some time, so I mean, just even from her perspective, even though she knows, I think some of our family were helping her understand who I am to her. Because again, I had a big break between where I wasn't able to see her, or maybe she wasn't told who I am, and I don't know why, but she had so much confidence in me. Like she was just like, "Yep, this is where I'm going. I mean, this is what I'm doing," and it was absolutely that drove me to go out of just to do anything for her. I mean, she would hold my hand throughout the whole, from basically the start to the very finish. And she was very happy, which again, is just something that I just didn't see coming. I couldn't tell you how much that just, seeing your daughter just smile, be, seem like she's just full of confidence in what's going on, was just so important. I think that's what kept me in a more of a positive mindset that, we are going to make this happen.
So you're on the plane
Even though it
now,
was,
going to the US, you've got your daughter looking at you, implicitly trusting you with every single move, more likely unaware of the bigger implications of what could happen. In the back of your mindset, you're thinking of ICE and how kids can be torn away from their families, and you're about to land in the US. What happens? How are you right now?
yep, standing in line, waiting for the border patrol. My mind just shut down, Rajan. I mean, I couldn't really even think anymore at that point. I was, I'm so used to keeping a structure in certain things, in my other day-to-day activities, like just, or my work. And here there was no structure, right? This is just, we're going on a whim and don't really know what's going to happen. And as we slowly got up to that line, that 1 hour, man, felt like a whole day. I mean, it felt just so long. Arya was keeping me company through this whole thing, so obviously that was, just something that I felt, again, either takes my mind off of it or whatever it does. But once I did get to the security officer there, I, handed him my passport. He swiped it. I gave him Arya's green card, and he swiped that as well. And within 2 seconds, I was out of the airport. Haven't a clue, man. I was told almost no by everyone, and this isn't. I don't think this was even I don't think this is even a written law. How some of this stuff even works. I've talked to many lawyers before I even got there. I talked to every U.S. Like I mentioned, like the USCIS, the Department of State. I talked to so many people, and a lot of folks did not see how that was even potentially a possibility. Now, the U.S. is very, very strict when it comes to the border, and
Yeah.
I know he didn't make a mistake. That I 100% know, and I don't know what, I mean, our records get pulled up as soon as we swipe our passports. I mean, everything is just, historically, everything is always there. And he didn't ask a single question, Rajan. And
How did you feel as soon as you?
my whole heart just opened up, man. The light that just came through. I just couldn't imagine what just happened in those 24 hours. I felt the biggest accomplishment I felt in my entire life, after going through so many of those struggles within that same year. It was the most freeing feeling I've ever had. Obviously I had a lot more work to do. After that, I've got many years, hopefully to continue. But this just heavy weight just lifted off of my heart that had been sitting there for so many years, and it finally felt like, I can move forward now. I can think, more clearly and focus on specific things. I mean, it just opened up everything for me, Rajan.
How did it feel more precisely holding your daughter's hand, knowing these 2 years of what you've been through, and now you're in the country that you call home and that will be her home? And what was her reaction? Did she understand what just happened, or?
I mean, I don't think she will until she's much older, and even then, I don't think it'll make sense. I think we really rely on that support, and I heard that from some of your other podcasts. With support is so important through all of these things, right? I mean, knowing that you can talk to people about it, knowing that you can let some of these things off your chest when you need to get it off is just very important as human beings. And yeah, I don't I still don't think that she will ever understand. And now she's here. She's been here for a year. Speaks fluent English. Doesn't speak Hindi or Gujarati anymore, which we're working on. But she went from being very kind of reserved with meeting people and seeing people. Again, I don't know. I'm mostly guessing because of what she went through. She was a very quiet child when I saw her there. Now I can't turn it off, Rajan. Now it's just it's on all day, full of energy. I mean, she could talk. She could talk all day, and she could go on all day. And she loves to meet people, and she loves to see everything. And is her Indian culture. I don't want her to lose that because it means so much. A lot of those values that come out of our Indian culture, for example, provide us, this extra ability to do things, to go out of our way for certain things, to challenge the system, to challenge anything. I mean, in life. And I always felt like that culture has a way of providing this driving force, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I did. What would be your advice to other parents out there who haven't been able to see their children or have custody of their kids?
That's a great point, Rajan. I was just, I was told that for years that I need to move on from all of my family, just let it be, and get married again. I mean, that the past is the past, and I couldn't, from the day that Arya was born, I made a commitment that I'm going to be there for her in every single situation. I had to do that, and I don't know how that gets lost, in a typical society nowadays, because that's our responsibility from day one, right? I mean, a child isn't born in this world with everything and is able to take care of themselves with everything. I mean, that is a parent's duty to go through these things. And I feel like for anybody that's out there, responsibility isn't always a bad thing. I mean, it is tough. It can be very tough. I mean, even for me right now, it's pretty tough as just being a single father. But I wouldn't miss it for the world, and I don't think anybody should miss their child's growth for the world. I mean, just seeing your person develop, just grow into who they are, who they'll be, regardless of who they'll be, obviously. But I feel like that just shouldn't be missed, Rajan. It cannot be missed, and we are passing on. Everything we do is for our future generations, right? I mean, regardless. I mean, I'm not going to take anything with me. So I would always say, yeah, you have to be there for your kid. You have to be there for your child, no matter what situation you're in. I know it can be tough, but again, it's our responsibility.
What a remarkable conversation. And hats off to Ravi for being incredibly open and candid about his experiences there. I'm glad to say that Ravi and his daughter have been remarkably well. They've settled into life, and the moments of youth has been put upon them. The endless laughter, the joys, as well as the endless questions I felt is there. But it is such a feel-good story in the respect of it has had a happy ending. But also realise that there's many instances out there where things don't go quite to plan. If anything, and what you could take solace from, is the fact that Ravi never gave up. Perseverance and understanding what your purpose is a vital component towards following through for ideas, no matter how long it takes. If you too have a story, something you'd like to share like our other guests, it couldn't be easy to touch base with us. All you have to do is go to our new portal, www.globalindianseries.com. There you can see the entire repertoire so far of conversations for the podcast, in addition to riveting, uplifting content that delves into the global Indian world through articles, some of which I'm sure will absolutely shock and enlighten you. That's all from me today. I hope you've really thoroughly enjoyed this session, and if you can, please do like, share and subscribe to the work we do, because ultimately we get to building a living encyclopedia about what's it like to be people of Indian origin around the globe, that goes beyond the flag ceremony praises that one people used to do before, and delves us into something far more important, which is our ties that bind us together around the globe, the things that make us unique, and importantly, the thing that actually makes us a true community. I look forward to hearing from you next week.